Hello, everybody, and welcome to this super special webinar here today, where we are bringing to you a live Q&A session with both the designers and developers of Aruna Resort there on Ambergris Key in Belize. So if you have not had a chance to check out the official launch webinar that took place about a month ago at this point, please be sure to head on over to our website at www.ecovillages.life and request an on-demand recording of that webinar that will help fill in any of the holes that you have that may not be addressed in this presentation specifically. So the idea for this webinar happened because we understand that you are making a big investment, and this is a place that you may choose to call home full-time, or maybe you're looking at it strictly as an investment property, but we're trying to connect the dots between you as the owner and the guys behind the scenes that are making everything come to life. So on the line here with us, we do have a familiar face there, Spencer Hebert. He is part of the Eco Villages design team. Spencer, you want to just quickly say hi to everybody here that are joining us?
Hey everybody, appreciate you guys joining in. Happy to answer any questions you may have about the design aspect. And we have Justin and Malik here, who are the developers, and I'm sure they'll be happy to help answer any questions about the development itself. So happy to be here.
Perfect. And like Spencer mentioned, we do have the developers behind Aruna Resort on the line with us today, Justin Ferguson. Justin, anything you want to say to folks that are tuning in with us today?
It's fantastic to get an opportunity to talk to everybody about Aruna and the vision that we have for it moving forward.
Perfect. Awesome. And last but of course not least here, Malik Smith. Malik, tune in here. Let us know what's going on. What are we doing here today?
Yeah, it's really excited to chat with everybody and answer any questions that people have. I'm broadcasting from live in down in Belize. I was at the site this morning. It was looking fantastic. The sun's out, and really excited to chat with people and give them updates today.
Awesome. So as we mentioned, this is a little bit of a different kind of webinar. We are taking your questions and answering them live. So what I would like for you to do at this point is find that Q&A section down at the bottom of your control panel. You should see two little chat bubbles that say Q&A. You can type your questions directly into there, and we will answer them as they come in. I do have a list of questions that were sent in for folks that could not join us live today. We understand this is the middle of a workday for a lot of you folks, so we do want to be respectful of your time, and I do want to make sure that we get everybody's questions answered. So I'm going to start off with probably one of the biggest questions that we get asked pretty much all the time. Every client wants to know what makes you different. What do Malik and Justin bring to the table with Aruna Resort that other developers haven't been able to accomplish in Belize and across the region specifically? And either one of you guys can answer that one. So just jump in whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that brought Justin and I down here is a real passion for the local community of Belize. We're both Canadian guys who've known each other and grew up together for many, many years. And I've done some development work in Canada with a number of projects in the Aurora area, and really came down to Belize and fell in love with the country, the people, the community, and decided that, we'd really like to partner together and build something down here. And that's what's led us to this first phase of Aruna and many future phases to come. And is really that passion for the project and passion for the local area. It really is a fantastic country. So
yeah, I do have to echo that sentiment. Being somebody that lived there myself for many years, you fall in love, right? You fall in love with people. You fall in love with your surroundings for sure. Justin, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
Well, it's amazing when you get to Ambergris Key, it's something that you wouldn't expect to normally find in any other Caribbean destination. I've always found, it's English speaking. Two, you've got a common, for example, the British common law is the law that's there, which makes it easy to own property. But it's the people you meet, right? Everybody is friendly to you. You can walk down the streets at night and feel safe. You can, you look around and you see the opportunity that will exist in the future as the country continues to develop. And for myself, when I first landed in San Pedro, I just immediately fell in love with the destination. I know that's the same for Malik when he came down as well. And I think anybody who's considering purchasing a property in the Caribbean, they would be remiss not to immediately check out the islands of Belize. And certainly, obviously, we encourage everybody to check out what we're doing at Aruna. I think it's a massively unique opportunity that to come into an area of the country that, with the canal down the middle, you have water access, you're right on the ocean. This is something that you don't get anywhere else, particularly when you look at the different opportunities that you see in the Caribbean.
Yeah, absolutely. And something you mentioned was how unique of a property that Aruna sits on with the canals and things like that. So here on the screen is the master plan, but just as a refresher for those of you that did tune in for that launch webinar. And I asked you a bit ago about what separates you from other developers in Belize, and a lot of people have this fear because they've heard the horror stories of going and putting down money and putting down a deposit on these projects, and then not having those projects come to fruition. So something I wanted to note here, and maybe Malik or Justin, you can kind of explain to us what we're seeing here and what's already under construction to the folks that are here on the line. And then we actually have a video, Malik, that we put together of the construction progress that's happening, just to show you guys that there are people on the ground that are working. Actually, as of today, Malik, you are there on site. So tell us a little bit about what this master plan is looking like and how it's coming together.
Yeah, so basically our phase one is the pool and clubhouse building on the south side of the master plan there. The first 14 units that are shown from R1 to R14 are already under construction. Most of them are finished, and certainly the front four are finished, and the ones along the canal side are all finished. So what separates us from other developers is we used our own capital for these first units. About 50% of them are sold already, but we used our own capital initially to get it started and to build the project. And like I said, Justin and I are committed fully to this to this project, and we're not just using other people's money. This is something that we want to be involved in. We want to be invested heavily in. If you look at the large house on the north side of the canal, that's where I'm building my house and my family home. So I'm going to be on site. I'm going to be committed to this in the long run. And the construction's moving along quickly. We're going to have models that'll be done within the next couple of weeks. I'm here on site every day, checking it out, making sure that the construction is progressing. Within the month, we'll have the restaurant, the pool, and the bar finished, and ready to start thinking about what we're gonna do there over the next few months in terms of opening the restaurant, building into the high season of this year, and continuing on with some of the developments that have already been sold in future phases. I know we had a tiny home that was sold recently, so we're going to start construction on that, and some of the bigger homes in the 2 and 3 bedrooms. So there's lots of action going on down there. All of our electricity, water, waste, all of that is already connected in place. So it's we're not waiting for BEL or any local issues that would hold us up. All of our permitting is in place and ready to go. So the project is well on its way, and it's certainly you're not in the infant stages of a project that's waiting to get started, where you might need 50% or something along those lines to really start breaking ground. This project's well on its way to having phase 1 completed and beginning to move on to phase 2 with future sales.
I love it. And something that I just wanted to point out here, and I think we mentioned it a little bit in a past webinar, was that these pools, the pools that are down here at the end of the piers, there's something quite unique about those. Can either one of you speak a little bit about kind of what the process is behind those and why you chose to go the route that you chose to go?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. So when we originally started out with the design, we've had a eco-conscious mindset from the very beginning. Having said that, we built out the largest, what we believe to be the largest pier in Belize. So when you come and see the pier, it is large, and we went through all of the environmental protocols to ensure that it met what was required by Belize environment. Plus, we went a little bit, we went further, quite frankly. But when you look at the pool specifically, it's a container, and we don't believe, or we've not seen anybody else put a pool out on the pier. So when you're sitting in that pool, you've got a 360 or at least a 270 view of the water all around you. We think is going to be a completely unique offering that will enable everybody who stays at Aruna, whether owners or guests, to enjoy a very unique experience. On top of that, one of the elements that we did on the design was, if on the north side, we're gonna mirror the pier and add another pool on that side of it, which part of the reason is to create a gated community feel. So you'll see a drawbridge that goes across. So it ends up, your canal property ends up being almost in your own gated community.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a great explanation there. And before we get too much deeper into this Q&A, because I do have some questions to follow up there about the environmental impact. And Spencer, I'm going to put you in the hot seat in a bit to talk about the systems and things like that, and what kind of protection you have put in place for things like the solar batteries and things like that. But I do want to share this video with you all here on the line about the progress that is happening right now, probably even as we speak. So give me just a second to pull up this video. Make sure you have your sound up if you wish to hear a little bit of this tropical music that's here in the background. And it's about 45 seconds long, about 50 seconds long, apologies. But here we go. Wow. And so that sunset, as I get the presentation pulled back up, that sunset on that part of the island is just absolutely phenomenal. If you haven't had a chance to visit Belize yet, and specifically Ambergris Caye, you must check out the sunsets on the west part of the island there. So, and in that video, you actually saw the first pier with the pool going in. Is that right, Malik?
Yes, that's correct. So they were by the pool, and they were also we're using kind of a modular container design to give the structure on the pier more strength. And so they were stacking the containers, which will house the kitchen, the restaurant, and then we're going to put, within the next few weeks, we're going to put the rooftop deck on, which is where the bar will be, and you'll have 360 views of the sunset to the west over by Secret Beach and of downtown San Pedro.
Perfect. And so I noticed in this first phase that these homes are of wooden construction materials. What is going to be going forward for the next phases?
Yeah, so we used, when we first started this project, was a couple of years ago, and obviously the market has changed quite significantly in terms of building costs, and the gap between concrete and wood has shrunk considerably. So going forward, we felt it's best for the unit holders, for weather related impacts, that we would go with concrete for future phases. It'll give a lot more strength to the units and give a long lasting product going forward.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to turn the attention here a little bit to our designer here, Spencer. Spencer, these homes are on hybrid solar systems. And one of the questions that we get asked from clients who are concerned about protecting the marine ecosystems there and I guess, off chance that these solar batteries leak, what would you say to those people that have this concern? What have you done? What kind of homework have you done to ensure that that doesn't happen, or the chances of it happening are very low?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a valid question for sure, and it's something that we've considered. With obviously lithium ion is very powerful battery technology, but it has a bit of a reputation for being a bit volatile. Older versions of lithium ion battery technology and phones and things like that, people, there's stories about them lighting on fire. But we're actually going to be using a newer technology called lithium iron phosphate, or LiPo4 batteries, and those are essentially, they operate at a much cooler temperature. They don't operate at a high temperature like a lot of lithium ion and batteries do. They're completely closed units, and they are non-combustible. So they're a lot safer. They're the single safest type of lithium ion battery, and there's really not a lot of scenarios that they could leak. It would be more of a puncture type situation if they were to leak. And in that case, I mean, they have their own, we have our battery and we have our solar system rooms, essentially a closet where all the systems are in, and it's access from the outside of the home in some of the units. And it's just something that really wouldn't happen. But if it were to happen, it would be for more of a puncture related scenario, something hitting it. But even in that case, all of the unit models, we've made sure that those battery storage locations are far enough away from the canal that even if they were to leak, none of that would enter the canal. So it's in 2 of the 3 models are at the very back side of the house, furthest away from the canal. And then on the Tula model, it's a little closer, but it's still a significant distance away. So yeah, it's something we've considered. And with this new lithium iron phosphate battery technology, it's very, very reliable, very safe, very long lasting batteries too, which is important to get that longevity out of the batteries. It's more sustainable in the long run. And obviously generally hybrid solar systems are very sustainable to begin with. So
yeah, and you're speaking to the sustainability aspect of it. And if you're here on the line today and you've not actually been to Ambergris Caye, there are sometimes some drops in your on-grid or your system power. And the solar systems that you've put into these homes, Spencer, are designed from a 2-pronged approach. Can you just kind of talk about what those are and why this is something that you would want to have in this part of the world as a backup for electricity use?
Yeah, for sure. In all the models, the hybrid systems are going to be a standard feature, and then you can have change orders to upgrade them if you want. It's totally an option, and we'll help you along with that process too if that's something you're interested in. But the base model of the system is essentially designed to offset your operational costs if you're renting, or if you're living there, to offset your just living costs. So they're not large enough. Their hybrid systems are not large enough to run the air conditioning, because air conditioning is a massive draw. But if you are very efficient with your use, you could actually be 100% powered by these systems, or you can easily upgrade them to be capable of that as well. But they're more to offset your costs of operations, and then also, to help with returns and things, but also to combat the somewhat unreliable nature of the grid system there. The power does go down quite a lot in San Pedro, and then with these homes, it's kind of a battery backup rather, as well as a system that's going to be regularly passively offsetting your operational costs. So it's you get 2 benefits there right off the bat, and very upgradable, like I said. Easily tap into the system with more panels, more batteries, and potentially could have your entire home, including air conditioning, running off that as well. There's no shortage of sun in San Pedro. So,
and just to tag on to what Spencer was saying, is that we're also going to put the critical infrastructure on generator backup so that water and waste systems continue to operate. And especially if you have solar, then you really see no change in your unit if the power does go out from the grid.
Perfect. You read my mind, Malik. That was going to be my next question is what about the other systems that are in place on site? So, okay. So we talked a little bit about the solar systems and what those benefits are to having them. I want to kind of go back to this idea of maintaining the environment and just making sure we're doing our social responsibility to make sure that the canals are staying nice and clean, and that we're not disrupting the marine life or any of the natural habitats of the property there. So Justin or Malik, can you tell us a little bit about what you plan to do as far as the HOA or as part of this community yourselves to ensure that we're just taking care of the local wildlife that's there now?
Yeah, I think, down in Belize, we went to put together a very rigorous environmental protection plan. It is required, but we went above and beyond to make sure that we went even further from what the local requirements were. At every turn, construction was being done in mind with safeguarding the local ecosystem as the top priority. Since the canal was constructed, local corals, fish, mangroves have already started to naturally propagate back into the canal, and we're going to continue to work with the local environmental authorities to continue to add more to those plans and making sure that our ecosystem is top notch and promoting a healthy ecosystem. We've procured a top tier waste system out of the United States that basically transforms any solid waste that we have from the resort into gray water that can be treated gray water that can be used for irrigation. It removes all bacteria and anything harmful to the environment, and we want to be able to reuse that water for the irrigation on the resort. We've also have a reverse osmosis system that will desalinate the seawater into clean water for the resort, and we've also done a purpose-built discharge well that rather than discharging the salt brine back into the canal or back into the lagoon where it could impact the local ecosystems, we have a purpose-built well that will allow us to discharge that salt brine back into the local ecosystem in a safe way. And we'll also work with our guests to minimize the usage of single-use plastics, providing reusable options where possible, making sure all the boats that might be around are fit for being in the area so that we don't have any leakage of fuel or anything like that, and really keep eco as the top of mind as we work through this.
Awesome. And so I know you just mentioned the personal use of boats that can be docked at these homeowners. What size boat are we looking at as far as being able to be tied up to personal piers that are within that canal?
Justin, go ahead. I'll let you answer that one.
I think the max, inevitably because of the way Belize is, where it's located, you actually have low water. Other than our canal is actually deeper than what you would see while you're out in the direct sea right in front of us. So you're probably maximum is about a 26-foot boat that could come down. I know Spencer's, because of his background, has a lot more knowledge on that, and when took that into consideration as he was doing the overall design, and probably can go into a little bit more detail of what the water will enable people to actually use.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the draft of the canal, it's definitely capable of supporting about a 26-foot boat, but there are some areas along the shoreline that maybe only draw a few feet. So we don't really recommend a boat of that size. We would recommend more of the local style or shallow draw boats, maybe like a pontoon boat or a local panga, which don't draw a lot of water at all. The width is a big thing to consider too. We can't, of course, considering some of the homes go out over the canal and the docks and everything, we have to consider the width. It's about 50 feet wide in total, but with everything adding up, it's a safe number. About 8 feet is what we're going to put in the HOA as far as the beam of the boat goes. And we're going to put a max of 8 feet. And the HOA eventually is going to be passed on to the homeowners to control however they want, because we feel it's important for the homeowners to, once there's a critical mass there, for them to have control of the HOA and just make those decisions themselves. But as a baseline, as a start, we're going to have an 8-foot maximum beam. And the purpose of that is just so the boats can safely and clearly get past each other in the canal. And it's not really necessary to have too much larger of a boat. Even like Justin pointed at, in the lagoon in front, there's actually a lot of areas that don't even draw as much water as the canal itself. So you're kind of limited in that sense anyways. I have sailed in that lagoon, but it was a very shallow draft sailboat. It only it was maybe 3 feet or so that it drew. So yeah.
If the conditions are right, you can actually walk from the where Aruna is into downtown, because it's so shallow in some areas. So you really need to. Canal itself is about 8 feet, 8 to 10 feet deep. So there's lots of room there, but the lagoon area, it's, you know, in some spaces is only 2 or 3 feet. So you definitely need a boat with minimal draft in order to operate over there.
Yeah, so yeah, we're thinking about a 16-foot runabout style would be a very reasonable boat in there. But yeah, maximizing the beam at 8 feet for the sake of the width. But keep in mind that some areas by the shoreline of the canal are about 3 foot, 3.5 foot draw, so or draft there. So
I just learned so much more about boats and canals and drafts that I probably ever would have learned in my life. All right, so kind of moving into the common spaces. Let's talk a little bit about the common spaces, because you guys have some really cool ideas for different vendors and things like that that you're going to have in these common spaces. Maybe give us a little bit, Spencer, give us a little bit, real quick rundown of the different kinds of vendors that we're hoping to host in these common areas. And then I have a question for our developers here.
okay, for sure, yeah. I mean, it's really open to what the demand is there, but so we have an open mind in that sense, but we're kind of thinking more along the lines, things anywhere from coffee shops to ice cream shops to even local crafts and goods like from local artists and things. The idea is to kind of have a mixed opportunity for local people to open up shops there, and even possibly residents if they want to lease a unit there as well and start a small business. That's open as well. So of course you have the small shops on the north side of the canal there, and then going down to the south side, there's the common the digital nomad kind of workstation is what we're going to call it, and then the yoga palapa there as well. So there's a public Wi-Fi zone there that you can go and work if you want to change the scenery, to meet some people. So the idea is to kind of centralize the community there, bring people together, have those shops available, things to do. And then, of course, in the master plan itself, there's also at the very far end of the canal with the condo buildings down there, there's going to be the over the water performance stage. So that'll be a great draw to bring in, you know, events and things like that. So the idea is to have a very unique kind of secluded community here, but with the opportunity to have events and host things and have, you know, an active, lively community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the drawbridge idea is just so charming to me. It's so novel. It's such a fun idea. It makes you think of your childhood and building moats and sandcastles and things like that. So Justin and Malik, when you're talking about having these common spaces for guests and owners to enjoy, one of the things that we've been asked a couple of times now is, how do you plan to source the vendors for these different kiosks and things like that, and make sure that it's not just a bunch of empty buildings at the end of the day?
Well, the one thing that's beautiful about Belize is you actually, there's like, you could walk down the street or walk down the beach in Belize, and there's local vendors around, but because there's not a ton of infrastructure on the island, there's actually, we've found there is a demand to lease out these opportunities. So like if you were to go, when you go and you talk to different people, like I get a phone call every couple months or something, and somebody says, hey, I want to open a dive shop I want to move to Belize and open a dive shop, or I really have an interest in, I want to retire and I want to maybe buy a villa from you, but I want to have a coffee shop or a bistro, and as some additional passive income. So when we look at the future, we actually think there's going to be a lot of demand for it. Having said that, the traditional marketing would come into play if need be. We just don't feel as though that's necessarily going to be a problem at this stage, based on the inquiries we're already getting.
Awesome. All right. So speaking to this, how do people get to Aruna? Because like you mentioned, it's about a 5-minute boat ride across the lagoon from San Pedro town to Aruna, but there's some additional ways that people can get there. Tell us a little bit about what those are. And I mean, is just property only going to be allowed to have golf carts, or are we looking at cars, or what can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. Just to add also to what Justin was saying about vendors, we're also looking to partner with a lot of local people to do, there's jewelry classes, cooking classes, cocktail making classes, things like that will support the open spaces that we're going to have there, and really put a focus on bringing locals into the community as well. That being said, how to get to Aruna, there's really 2 ways to get there right now. One of which is very unique to where we are on the island, to Aruna, which takes about 10 minutes for that stretch of the road, where you could drive all the way around from downtown San Pedro in about 50 minutes. But like Ali said, the boat ride takes 2 to 3 minutes on the pontoon that we have, and we'll be running the shuttle very regularly for resort guests and people who are interested in going over to Secret Beach. So there'll be lots of ways to get over to Aruna. The resorts just to the south of us don't have any road access, so they actually don't have the ability to put golf carts over on the west side. But Aruna, for resort owners, they'll be able to have their golf carts there. There really isn't enough room, and it's very difficult to get permits for cars on the island. So the main mode of transportation is golf carts. Thank you for going to this location page. So yeah, you'll see the road that runs all the way over there. I walk that road. It's about 12 kilometers a round trip to get to Secret Beach, but the road is very, very smooth now and in very good condition. So it's about a 10-minute golf cart ride and say a 5-minute boat ride. You could be all the way from downtown to Secret Beach. But certainly going from downtown to Aruna, you're a very quick boat ride that will run frequently. And if you need to, you can drive your golf cart around. So.
Awesome. And you mentioned the shuttle that will be part of the Aruna, basically the HOA there. And you're working with, a schedule, or what can people anticipate as far as the shuttle is concerned?
Yeah, I think one of the, it's always a concern for people, I want to go into town at this time, can I get the shuttle? I think we'll certainly commit to running the shuttle hourly at a very minimum, because I like to be able to go into town regularly. You have meetings, you want to go out for dinner, or you have an event, go scuba diving. You want to have a regular shuttle access and then run it on demand as needed outside of that. So, it's interesting when Justin says people call down and like, what can I do down in Belize as a side thing? So many people want to drive the boat down there. It's like they want to be the captain, they want to drive it back and forth. So we've got lots of people to staff a shuttle between Aruna and downtown San Pedro.
Perfect. And I know that we had a couple of people that joined us late, and we did have another question come in about the planned construction materials here. So we talked a little bit about the difference between phase 1 construction materials and phase 2 construction materials. But can you speak to a little bit, just kind of touch on that briefly one more time, and speak then to how those materials are going to hold up to salt air, natural disasters, and other elements that may affect those builds?
Yeah, it's a really great question, because people often complain that materials can be expensive in Belize, but one of the things that is beneficial to buying locally, which we do as much as possible and have done as much as possible, is that the materials are designed to withstand the salt air and not to corrode. You can buy something that's stainless steel from China. Well, there's different degrees of stainless steel, and some of it will actually corrode if you bring it down to Belize. So we source our materials locally, so we know that they're going to withstand the salt air. Again, like we mentioned, we're going to build the units out of concrete, and to make sure that they withstand any natural disasters. They'll be really well built. All of the units, wood or concrete, are built at least 5 feet above sea level to anticipate in the event that there may be any storm surge in Belize, which Belize doesn't get very many hurricanes, hardly at all. That if the water does rise, that the critical infrastructure and the units are protected from any rise in water. And of course, as a worst case scenario, we have insurance to cover us for any losses as it relates to a natural disaster or any other issues that might come up.
Awesome. And Spencer, can you talk a little bit about the design of the homes as far as, the position of them on the canals and what you had envisioned for the various home types, between the tiny homes all the way up to the canal homes and estate homes?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, as far as the elements are concerned, we wanted to kind of, you can see on the design of the homes, the floor plan layout. There's
Get there.
yeah.
Take a minute.
No worries. There's, they're really designed to have a solid flow all the way through it, and the idea is to get have the ability to just have a nice passive air blowing through, a breeze coming through the home all the time. You can really open these homes up and potentially just offset the use of air conditioning altogether. Of course, like Malik said, they're built 5 feet above sea level. That's really important to for the security of the home in general. To be able to withstand the elements. Being concrete, they're going to be very, very solid. There's really no concerns there. The concern of fire is almost completely eliminated at that point. But yeah, the homes, they all are designed with the pools on the front end, the big patios. Living inside, outside living is really important in that part of the world, even particularly in the tiny homes, because like a lot of people think, the square footage might be a bit of a detriment to them being smaller. Although these tiny homes are, as far as tiny homes are concerned, 600 square feet is quite a lot. But there's always that concern of like the living space, but there it's the inside outside living is huge, and we always make that a big priority in the designs. You spend a lot more time hanging out outside than you do inside when you're down there, so you can really take advantage of the outdoors being a part of your living area, and which is something that we always do with our designs. So yeah, I mean, the flow of the community in general, we wanted to try to break it up. That's why you'll see the tiny homes, the condo, the full-size homes, resort units, everything kind of broken up a little bit, using the common area in the middle. We didn't want it to feel too linear and too repetitive. So we wanted to maintain a good flow through the community, but we also wanted it to be unique looking and not to the typical kind of North American mentality of just the copy paste. I think is outdated and something of the past. And we're all the communities we design, in particular Aruna, we're very we take that seriously, creating a community that has a unique feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just kind of shuffling through the different home models here. We did have a question come through from Jonathan. Jonathan is asking to recap the next build units and schedule. So Malik, I know you talked about finishing some elements of phase 1 and then moving into phase 2. Can you just kind of recap that for Jonathan here on the line with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're currently finishing up the phase 1 units and the clubhouse. I would say within the next month or two, we should have all of that completed and be in a really good position to work on landscaping and then begin the phase 2 properties. We're really in a spot where we can do them on demand as people reserve the units. So with everything going on, once we finish up these phase 1, I would say something in the time frame of end of the summer, early fall, we're going to begin on phase 2 projects that have been reserved.
Awesome. All
Or
right.
sooner, if we can. And being conservative in our estimates, or sooner.
Or sooner. I love it. Yeah, but there are things to consider. I know that you've probably been experiencing a little bit of the rainy weather there from Hurricane Agatha, and just some remnants of the rain from that. So that does unfortunately put a halt sometimes in the progress of construction, and it's just the nature of the beast down here in this part of the region. So we do have to take that into account. But as promised, your home will be delivered within that 10 to 12 month build period that was inside your sales agreement. So I believe that's all of the questions that I had that came in previously. Oh, one more that I wanted to ask about, because this is something that's pretty serious and it's on a lot of people's minds when they are owning a home in, you know, a third world country, is the security. And a part of the HOA for this community is that security that's on site. So what are you guys doing to vet this process and to make sure that the guys you're putting in place to be the overlookers or the watchers of this community are good people and are good people to have on site?
Yeah, so San Pedro is really it's a small community, and a lot of the business that's done here is built around referrals. So we referred a security company that is used by several other resorts, including Capricorn on the east side of San Pedro, northeast of San Pedro, and they take into account the vetting of the security agents, and so we will have full-time security on premises from this particular company that's been fully vetted, and make sure that you're totally secure on that side of the island.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to give everybody, our people on the line here, just a couple of seconds there to type into the Q&A, but I do want to say thank you for those of you that have really taken the time out of your day to join us for this Q&A. Like I mentioned in the beginning, if you were not able to watch the full launch webinar, I really recommend you doing that. It will fill in some of those holes for you about the home models themselves, the different floor plans, kind of the bigger vision behind Aruna Resort. Then, of course, if you want to refer back to this Q&A or reach out with any additional questions, you are most welcome to do so. But Justin, Malik, Spencer, I am very happy that we were able to get this scheduled, and between your busy schedules of visiting the site and things like that, it was good to have you guys on today, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do so. So any parting words for the folks here?
Well, it's great to have an opportunity to talk to folks, and you know, one of the things that we've always maintained is that, you know, we are accessible. You know, when you're making an investment, particularly one in a part of the world that you might not be familiar with, you want to know that your investment's secure, and certainly, you know, that's gone a long ways to a lot of our thinking around this, including, you know, Malik mentioned at the top that he and his family are already in the process of building their home down there. Certainly, we've got we had originally made some units available to friends and family who immediately snapped those up. So we are committed to not only the Aruna community, but to Belize as a whole for the long term. And you know, we're looking forward to having others join us in becoming long-term community members and frankly friends.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, Spencer, anything you want to say to folks before we head out for today?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Aruna community has been really fun one to design. There's been a lot of cool concepts we've put into it, you know, from everything from the drawbridges, the piers and everything. Justin and Malik had a good base going already, and then we could kind of jump in and tagged on to that. And it's been a fun community design, and I'm really excited to see it, you know, continue to advance and move forward. I'm going to be definitely visiting a lot, and you know, if my personal finances allow for it, I'm probably going to go for a tiny home there, because it's a beautiful spot, and you know, from I love Belize. I got to spend 4 months down there, and I actually was there during the pandemic, so it wasn't quite as free as Belize probably normally is, but it was still a fun time, and beautiful country, beautiful people, and weather, obviously. So yeah, very, very excited for this community.
And Malik.
Yeah, I think just to echo what the boys have said, it's you know, we're not just building something, selling it, and then leaving. You know, we're invested in it. You know, I intend to stay there as well. So it's building that community of friends, family, and future friends, the people who want to invest and want to come visit. Belize is a fantastic place, but it's all about community, and that's what we're building.
I love it. It aligns so well with the Eco Villages pillars. So thank you again, guys, for being on the line with us here today and giving us your time. Somebody owes me a sailing trip. The next time I'm down there, we've got some sailors on the line here. So anyways, thank you all for joining us today. And please be in touch with any additional questions that you may have. And we look forward to speaking with you all soon. Bye-bye.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.